Hello and welcome. My name is Lexi and today we are talking about the new Tom Ford Eye Color Quad Creme. So this is the creme formula in 39 Violet Satine. So this is made in Italy. It is going to be 9 grams of product, same as the other creme quads, and it is stunning. I have to say, I did notice that this one feels a little bit creamier than my original, the very first quad that I picked up in the creme formula, which is the rose quartz, or rose topaz rather. So we'll talk a little bit about that, but let's start with some swatches. So we have 4 shades here, and they are, if you have not yet tried this formula from Tom Ford, this is like a powder cream. So although it says it's a creme or a cream, they are creamy, yet they're still powders. They're not going to be like your traditional cream eyeshadow in the pots, like the Tom Ford Platinum or anything like that. So it's much drier than that. It's more like a dry cream. But you can even see, and I'll show you this in the demos, that when you put this on your eyeshadow brush, it definitely has that wet, creamy texture on the brush as well. And these will kind of, you put them on, they feel dry going on, they feel more like a powder, but they do kind of, they're a little moist, I guess, for a few seconds. Will kind of set down. So I think this is a really nice formula. I'm really happy with the creme formula that Tom Ford has just brought out. I'm gonna go ahead and just give this one another swatch here just so you can see, but this is gonna be more of your like shimmer shade, your topper, so you can see it's not gonna be very dark on here. This first shade here, you have more of it's kind of got a brighter pink sparkle in there, but one of those warm pinks, not like a blue pink. So you've got more of a bright peachy pink on top of a little bit of an ivory shade. It's going to be not truly translucent for the base. There is a little bit of opacity, but not a lot. So if you're using this on its own, and I'll show you that in the demo, you can see where you put it on directly on the bare lid, you're going to get some shimmer, but this is really meant to be used on top of other shades. So next up, we have this satin shade. This is the one that looks like a blue, purple, lilac kind of shade in the quad here, this one right here. And I have to say, this is my favorite. But I do want you to notice as these colors kind of fade out, there is a little bit of a pink base to all of them. Even these more blue shades still have a little bit of pink in them. And actually, I think that ends up working out really well. I think it makes it a little bit more versatile on people with warmer skin tones than it would be, because sometimes those blue purples, which I personally love, just don't work on as many different skin tones. Then we have kind of this rosy mauve shade, and this is a deep eggplant purple. So these two are both blue based, but again, when you kind of fade those out, they're going to be a little bit more of that mauve tone underneath. And I will actually show you this on the demo for today's eye look. I used this last shade Wet as an eyeliner, and as you do that, as you start kind of drawing out that shade, at first it looks like a deeper version of this, but as that kind of gets spread out, it ends up looking just like this shade. So it's really interesting how red this one can actually turn when you get that wet. So just something to note. Again, you have to kind of shear it out to get this shade, but they are like almost identical once you shear that out. So I'm going to talk a little bit about these shadows while we go through the demos. I have a demo with an eye look on each eye and then today's look. So 3 different looks total. With this first look, we are kind of focusing more on this mauvey shade. And when I first started using this shade, I was thinking I was just going to use this in the crease. And then I ended up really liking it with this shimmer topper shade. And I thought the mauve tone in there really complemented the shimmer shade really well. And I really like how the shimmer can really soften those tones. It kind of tones down a little bit of the redness, but you still get that pink shimmer. And I just think it gives you a really soft glow then. So I really like them. If you want it a little bit more punchy, the mauve shade is more of a matte shade. None of these are completely flat mattes. They all have a little touch of satin in them, but the bottom two shades in the quad are going to be more matte. There's like no real like shimmer or anything in them. They just have a very, very soft, subtle satin finish to them. So they will be your satin mattes, the bottom two shades. So this mauve, really gorgeous for that. It also works great for, you know, like outer corner work and so forth, to deepen something and to warm things up a little bit. So I really like having this shade in here. Now for the second look, I wanted to go with something a little bit deeper, and I wanted to play with this deep eggplant shade, and I kind of wanted to see how all of these shades kind of played together on one eye look. So we started off with the deeper shade, and I put that in the crease. I just kind of laid it there, and then I took a clean brush to kind of buff that out a little bit because I wanted to feather it out, but it's a very pigmented shade. So these shades definitely go on well. They blend out beautifully though, so it's not something you have to worry about. If you get, you know, something in the wrong spot, you can definitely blend that out. You can remove it pretty easily. So it's very easy to work with. After a while though, as I mentioned before, these shades will set. So if you leave it too long to go out and blend it out, you will have a little bit of difficulty. You can still do that because again, this is not like a, you know, it's still like a powder formula in essence, but it will be a little bit more difficult and not quite as smooth of a blend. So moving on to kind of this more lilac blue shade, almost like a wisteria. I love this shade. This is my favorite shade in the quad, and it's beautiful. This one is definitely more of a stronger satin. You can put this on very softly, or you can put this on more pigment. And I thought it was really interesting because of this cream formula. Usually when you use a finger to apply these, things will get more pigmented, a little bit more, you know, just more vibrancy. And that's actually the opposite in this case. So using the brush, and I used a Hakuhodo shader brush here, and when you put that on with the brush, it actually picks up more pigment on the brush fibers, and they deposit on in a little bit of a thicker layer. Then when you're going in with your finger, you're going to get a lighter, softer layer. So if you want a more subtle color with this particular formula, I'd recommend going in with your finger, and then you can use a brush to kind of spread things out if you want. But if you want something more pigmented, go in with a shader style brush. That is definitely going to be the way to go. You want one of these like more flat brushes for this cream formula if you really want to build that up. And then again, this shimmer shade just goes beautifully with all of these shades. There's, you know, not enough opacity really. You can wear it on its own, but if you are using it, for example, just like an outer third or inner half of an eye look or something like that, compared to one of the other shades, you're going to see a major difference because there will be translucency to see your lid. So overall though, I have to say I absolutely love this. And with the last look, today's look, I wanted to play with using the last shade more as a liner. And as I mentioned at the beginning, you know, when I use this as a liner, and I'll show you this at the very end of the eye look, you know, after having it on my hand, and I use the Eson Pro mixing medium, which by the way, if you're looking for something to use for liquid liners that will not budge, so most of the time I'll use water, but if you want something that really doesn't budge, go with the Eson Pro mixing medium. Like it's legit. It will definitely stay put. It's really great for that, and it doesn't change the texture of your shadows in the pans. So I think it's a really great product. Anyway, moving on, using this as a liner, it went on really well, very smooth. And, you know, my right eye, of course, ended up better than my left eye. But I did really notice that the color change on my hand, what really turned it into that third shade in the quad, the mauve shade. So it just shows you that the true undertones in this particular color are going to be more red-based, more mauvey, versus the more blue-based overtones that you have in the shade that gives it that more deep eggplant shade. So using it as a liner, it still turns into the eggplant purple because again, I'm using it more concentrated. But if I wanted to sheer it out, and you could probably even do like an ombre look where you build it up and then you kind of spread it out, sheer it out more at the end and turn into that more mauvey shade. And I just think that's a really cool idea. I haven't tried it yet, but I think that's a really cool idea to try to, have one part a little bit deeper and the tail end a little bit lighter or vice versa. So just, something interesting to note there. But overall, I have to say I am in love with this quad. Purple eyeshadows, green eyeshadows, those are kind of my two biggest downfalls along with taupe. So this quad, I absolutely love it. And I have to say the formula is fantastic. Now, as I mentioned at the beginning of the video, I have two of the creme shadows that came out originally. And the one that I use the most is number 35, Rose Topaz. And that one, I just wanted to note that the shimmers on that one seem a little bit drier than the shimmer on this one. This one performs more like the other cream shadows in the quad, whereas the shimmers in my Rose Topaz are just a little bit drier. There's a more distinct difference to them compared to the other shadows. So let's go ahead and do some comparison swatches. So this is 35 Rose Topaz, and I'm just gonna go ahead and swatch this. So this came out several months back, so you can see kind of how the formula holds up over time. This color story is obviously not going to match up with this. So I'm actually gonna put it down here because we'll put closer colors there. But I want to show you how the formulas kind of, perform over time because they have not dried out. They have become a little bit firmer in the pan from use and so forth. You can see what they look like in the pan here. But, they are still performing on the eyes exactly the way they were when I first got them. I'm just going to add a second layer here because some of these shades are a little bit light here, just so you can see that. So this is one of my favorite neutral quads. I use this one all the time. And these will give you just like a really soft finish. So overall though, I have to say that the formula for these creme quads is fantastic. But I did notice that this topper here in Violet Satine versus this more shimmery shade here, this one's a little bit drier, whereas this feels just a little bit more finely milled. This almost feels like it has a little bit larger particles in it. So just something to note there, but overall they are both fantastic. So let's do a few comparisons with some other Tom Ford quads. And we're gonna start off with number 25, Pretty Baby. This is in their regular eyeshadow formula. And let's go ahead and take a look at this. This is not going to be the same, but there are definitely going to be some similarities here. We're going to double up so we can save space. And Pretty Baby does have this duochrome here, so you can see that you've got this pink orange reflect with a little bit of this bright blue in there. So that's going to be something very different than what you get in this particular quad. You have this deep chocolate brown, more of this pinky taupe, and then you have another blue-based purple. But notice how different it is from Violet Satine. This is going to be more purple, and it's also going to be a lot more vibrant. Next, this is 27 Virgin Orchid from Tom Ford. And this, I really love this palette. I haven't had it that long, so you can see it looks pretty much brand new. But, so that's 1, 2, 3, 4 in this case. But this shade here is going to be the closest to the second shade in the new Violet Satine. Let me just go ahead and put that right there. So this is that more like taupey shade in Virgin Orchid, but you can see that the Virgin Orchid shade is going to be a lot more brown, but you still have kind of these taupey tones in Violet Satine with kind of a mix of that wisteria blue purple in there. Now for me personally, the palette that I thought looked the most like Violet Satine is actually the Dior Tutu palette. This is $769. This is in the permanent range. We're gonna go ahead and swatch these shades here. Here's the first 3. And let's see here. Let's actually try to put this right up here at the top So we can kind of compare that, but look at the mauve shade there. This is the middle shade in Tutu, along with the mauve here in the Violet Satine. Those are going to be pretty close, but this is going to be like a more powdery matte. Again, the formula on these is different. And then I wanted to look at this shade here in particular. This is kind of your, these are your bottom two. This is your more blue base. Let's see here. Let's put that there. So notice that this is still going to be a little bit more blue base than that in the Violet Satine. And then I'm going to put this shade right here. This is the bottom shade. Again, it's more blue than in Violet Satine. But again, overall, the Tutu palette has a very similar color story. And this is going to be your more traditional powder shadow that is, you know, Dior's most recent formula. So, which, by the way, is fantastic. I really love that. There have been a few hit or miss palettes there, but for the most part, they have been wins. Now, this one here, 749 Romantic Voyage. We're going to look at just these three shades here. And let's go ahead and see how these compare. But you can see, again, you've got kind of those like mauvey tones. You've got this deeper shade. Let's just put that there. And you can see, again, it's going to be a vaguely similar color story. But these being mattes in this case don't have any sort of that, like this shade here is the closest to Violet Satine's second shade. And you can see that there's no shimmer in it like the Tom Ford has. This is 159 Plum Tulle. This is also going to be in the permanent line for Dior. Let's just go ahead and swatch all 5 of these. So this is the top 3. You can see this is definitely going to be much more blue purple. That's the middle shade there. And then we have this taupe and more of this like purple berry. So I'm going to put these kind of to the side so we can keep that together. But you can see that the deepest shade is going to be a lot more red than the Tom Ford Eggplant. And then this shade here is, actually take that chunk there. There we go. So you can see that that is going to be fairly similar. And again, that's the shade in this one here is Plum Tulle. So that would be this shade here. I also wanted to take a look at this palette from La Bouche Rouge. I have to double check the name of this because I can't see it on here. So I'll put that on the screen. I think it might be like something like Mead. But this is their, no, I don't think that's right actually. But this is their purple base palette. Let's go ahead and put this, we'll just put this here on this side. And again, you do have a similar color story overall. These are all going to be more of a satin finish. These are a little bit more intense. They're a really nice formula though. I do like this particular quad. It's a pricey quad, but you're mostly paying for the packaging. So just something to note, but this is La Bouche Rouge's purple palette. Again, similar. And then this is the Chanel quad that came out a little while ago. This is 378 Douceur et Serenité. This one is limited edition, so it's not currently available, but if you have it, this will be a comparison for you. Let's go ahead. We'll just put this one right below it. So that lightest kind of beigey shade does have a touch of like a mauve in there, which works a bit with this, but it's going to be more pink than this shade here and a lot lighter than this. This kind of last shade in the Chanel quad is going to be a little bit more red than the third shade here in the Tom Ford. It's also a little bit brighter. We have a gray here, and then this purple is going to be much more grape-like than anything in the Violet Satine. And then last up, this is the Viseart Cashmere palette. This is one of my favorites, but I really just wanted to compare these two shades here. They don't have anything like the deep eggplant or even really the shimmer, but this is going to be, we're looking here at the mauve shade right there. You can see this is going to be softer, a little dustier. And then that wisteria shade there, which you can see this is going to be a little bit brighter and actually has a little bit more pink in it. It doesn't have as much of that blue base or that like taupey vibe that you get with the Tom Ford. So I hope these comparisons were helpful. I absolutely love this quad. I think it is gorgeous, and I really love this new creme formula. So definitely very happy to have this. It's one that I will be using a lot. And then there is a green one coming out that I can't wait to see. I have not seen that one available for purchase yet, but these quads are very, very new. So they're like a little bit hard to find right now. So I will continue updating in the description box as they continue to roll out to more retailers. But thank you so much for watching, and I hope you have a great day. Subscribe if you haven't already. Thanks.